Alright, welcome back to the app Looc where we're on unit 10.4. Going to be looking at the Tasky application right now. Tasky is basically an application that allows you to add a task. As you can see, there's an add task button here. I can go ahead and name this task. This is going to be appropriate to current state. I feel it is 1:31 in the morning and I should be awake. That is the task that I'm going to create. Quite clever. Notes on it are none. Doesn't need notes. Self-explanatory. And I can save this, and now I've got be awake and none as my notes. I can go back and add another task. Say hello, with notes being none, and I can hit save, and now I've got that task. I can also click on these tasks and I can delete them, or I can edit them. For example, none T. Save that, and now I've got none T. So you see how that works. Pretty basic. Task Manager. You could actually use it after you've completed this tutorial. You could actually use it on your own if you want to. It's kind of a fully functioning thing. Next up, we're going to show how this was actually made. But before I get to that, I want to show where this came from. So Xamarin Tasky is a case study on the Xamarin, basically on the Xamarin site, and you can download all the code here, and it kind of gives you everything you need to know about Tasky. I'll include this link in the section for Unit 10, so you can take a look at this and actually get the code. The basic idea here is that we're going to create some shared code that is going to be a cross-platform database with a business layer in between, and be able to create a task manager that provides an API to that UI layer. It can run on iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. It can display a list of tasks and create, edit, and save and delete these tasks. So, as Xamarin points out here, first step in designing an application is to identify what features you want to have, and that's what they've decided. Here was their interface design, just a screen flow on paper of how they want their tasks to look. Data model, the name is going to be a string, notes is a string, and done is a boolean. Now there's going to be a shared bit of code, which is basically the task repository and the task database, as well as SQLite. And so this is sort of a full-fledged application, and it will actually save out your tasks using SQLite and a task database on the actual phone itself. So basically we use a strategy here called clone project files for sharing common code, and this is the common code, the business entity, base class, iBusiness entity, task manager. That is all the common code that is shared between the two. And they're using actually an SQLite implementation from GitHub. And I will be going through some of the rest of this in a moment here. This gets kind of lengthy, and I don't want to show absolutely everything in here because it would take far too long, and for that matter you can kind of read it yourself on the website. So what I've done is I've got the thing running here. Now, if you want to get the code, another way to do it is if you go to the home screen, which where is that? So the welcome page. You actually go to View and then Welcome page. There's a number of pre-built apps, and not for your mini project. For your mini project, you're going to do something a little more simple, but for your full project, you might want to look at some of these. Use them as a baseline for what you're going to create. There's a step counter, for example, a t-shirt store, Tasky, here it is. So you can download the solution just by clicking this button. It'll give you a zip file. You can unzip that to the directory that you need and write on your own. In fact, that's what you should do for this video. You should download this. That will bring you to here, and download Tasky from there, and it should be able to get you up and running. There's kind of a nice little tutorial here that you should follow that talks about adding corresponding tasks, syncing changes that they're being made, altering the home screen, doing some different styling and next steps. So some very good tutorial stuff to follow here. I will probably link this as well, and this will be one of the optional assignments this week will be to follow through this tutorial. But in this video, all I'm really planning on doing is giving you a brief tour of Tasky. I'm going to go back to my solution here. So here we go. Okay, so to start with, we've got a Tasky core Android, which basically is all the database stuff. You don't have to worry about any of this. Quite similar to how I'm going to expect you to do your actual full application projects. You can feel free to copy and paste code, take code, do whatever you need to. In fact, I'm not even going to really explain this, but because it's pretty complex, but this is the repository for all the tasks. Tasky Android and Tasky iOS are going to plug into this in order to get their job done. So Tasky Android is the Xamarin starter project for task management, and what they've done is they've created a home screen, a task details screen, and a task list item screen. If we take a look at each of these in turn, we see stuff that starts to look familiar. Here we've got a single button, add task, which is called add button. On task details, here we've got the task details that are being entered, and a save button and a cancel button. And on list item, this actually lists the actual items that are possible, and these are actual buttons as well that can be clicked. You see the text view items there. So, looking at the source for each of these, hopefully by this point you've gotten Tasky unzipped and loaded up and kind of following along with me. The home screen here is where our add button is, and so we've got a button type here, add button, add task, and then task details. It's going to have a number of things. It's going to have the details header along with the name that you enter and the notes that you enter. So the name label, name text, kind of like I was doing before, the notes label and notes text. And then the list item is going to have a text view for the name text and one for the notes text, and they've coded up something so you can click on those as well. Now, there's really, in Tasky Android, there's really only two files that are CS files that are important here. One is home screen and one is task details screen. The home screen is going to have an activity basically that allows for you to create the page first of all, set the contents of the view to home screen, and then basically find our various controls. So like the task list view, for example, is going to be a list view of tasks. So that's a view that's identified by that particular attribute, task list, and the task button itself. This wires up, this next section wires up and adds the task button handler. So the task button click is meant to start the activity of showing the task details screen. This is another way of doing what we did before with the click, creating a function. This is just a lambda expression, which basically says the click is going to be add to it a function that calls sender E and then with this information. Next we're going to wire up the task click handler, and this is just going to be a simple item click plus equals and a function name is again a function that in this case sets the task details to a new intent. Now what an intent is a description of an action that's going to be performed. So this is going to be an action task details, and we're going to put an extra task to be performed on the task ID, which is setting that particular ID. So in other words, we're putting extra data on this intent of the string called task ID, and we're going to put in what the actual ID of that particular task is at that particular position. So this allows us to basically wire up the task click handler so that when you click on that task, it takes the position here, which is E, and that has been passed in from the item click events args, which is the position from adapter view. That gets passed in as a position that was actually clicked upon, and each of these tasks is set up to be in a certain position. And so that's like a map basically that says, okay, this position has a task named this, and this is the ID that's being passed in. And so that's going to set up a task details intent that gets passed into the activity, the start activity. So that's what allows it to change which task is being displayed currently. So if you click a task already existing, then it's going to pass that one in. If you don't, if you just say add task, that's just going to simply do the add task button, start activities on the details screen. Otherwise, we're going to start activity of task details, which is a new intent of task details screen, but we've added something to it. We've added the task ID to it at that particular position. So it's going to call into task details screen on create, and it's going to have that information inside of it. You see that getting it right here from the intent. Get int extra task ID, and 0 is the default, and getting the task there. So that's how that works. And then on the on resume, we're just going to basically get a list of tasks and display those, create a new adapter to display those, and hook it up to the list particular view in this case. So this is the task list adapter. We can take a look at how that task list adapter looks inside of the adapters function or adapters folder. Tasky Android has a task list adapter class that's basically a list of tasks which contains the each task is set to a position, as I mentioned before, as well as it has an item ID, and we have a total count on the tasks themselves. And when we call get view on the list adapter, we're going to get the object for that position. Then we're going to sort out and reuse the view here to reuse the convert view. Otherwise, it's going to just inflate it from that particular position using convert view. And that's basically all we need to do inside of the adapters class. So I'm going to go back to, I think we were somewhere around here. So that's going to go ahead and create our task list. Now the task details screen, which gets clicked, this either gets clicked with start new task, so add task, If that's the case, then we're just going to go ahead and um, create a new task. We've got our name task edit field and our notes edit field and our save button. In all cases, we have that. So that's just how we set the layout up. Now, if we've already got a task ID, then we set, if this is greater than 0, in other words, we set the task equal to that get task on that ID. And that allows us to, down here, show if the task should be canceled or not. Otherwise, it's just going to basically say that anything in this name text edit field is going to be tied in so that when it is edited, it updates that task. So we'd say task name equals name text edit dot text, task notes equals notes text edit dot text, and this is similar to what I showed you before in the much simpler field service little mini app that I made. And that's basically it. From there, it's just a matter of, we've got all these various database classes that you'll need to understand in order to do this optional assignment. And you'll be able to follow through. This is just a quick 10-minute guide, and my intent here is to give you something to just get a start with, something that's a little more complex than what we've done in the past. And this gives you a full description of where to start from here, including even loading the emulator. So definitely follow along this. I'm going to put a big old link on the Unit 10 for this. One of the things you're going to do is create a feature to mark a task complete. And basically we're going to implement a new property called done on it, adding a new UI mechanism and changing the home screen to display whether that task is actually completed. So as you can see, there's going to be this new done there. There's some videos you can watch. This is how it's set up here. And you should follow along each of these in turn. And that will complete the optional assignment. So you just kind of go through each of these. It has you doing some various things, syncing changes made in the user interface back to the business model, altering the home screen, and so on and so forth. So that's some basic stuff for you to take a look at doing as an assignment for this week. Now the mini app can be either an extension of this or an extension of the field service app that I made, and I'll talk about in greater detail. I'm going to release those details sometime near the end of the day today, being Wednesday the 7th. So for now, that should be it for the videos, and good luck with getting Tasky up and running and following along with the tutorial. Thanks.